Welcome to Page to Screen, the podcast where Nikki and Christina discuss books that were turned into movies and films that were adapted from books. As always, we do remind you that spoilers lay ahead. Now, we invite you to decide with us the age-old question, which is better, the book or the movie?
Are you ready for a showdown? Welcome to Battle of the Modern Day Vampires. Ba-ba-ba. Joining, as always, is my favorite bloodsucker, Christina.
Oh, thank you for the introduction. How are you doing, Nikki?
I am hoping this one doesn't suck. I hate myself.
Hey, are you ready, Spider Monkey?
Listen, we are going to get into that. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, so if you didn't listen to the last episode, what we're doing for the month of October is a head-to-head battle of what we are calling modern day vampires. And we're kicking it off with Twilight.
Twilight!
Oh, God.
Now, we are starting with the book. So the book is the YA vampire romance novel written by Stephanie Meyer. It came out in 2005. So you and I were in high school.
Yeah.
That's like my sophomore year, your junior year?
Well, it depends on when it came out in 2005.
Sure. Yeah. What
Because
month?
it could have been my senior year.
Right. And the book, I think everybody knows, but it follows Bella, who is sent to Forks to live with her father, and then she falls unequivocally, unconditionally in love with Edward, who happens to be a vampire.
Yeah.
And this was the first read for both of us.
Yes. And
Yes.
in the last episode, I did say that I had seen the movie on TV. When we get to the movie, I do just want to say ahead of time, I do not remember a single thing from that movie. So I'm 100% certain I did not see the movie either. So yeah, this is the first read, and I didn't know what... I knew the bare bones of this, and I knew the memes, and I knew that Robert Pattinson hated doing the movie. So when it came to the book, we discussed this. We wanted to go into it like open-minded. We are not going to make fun of it.
Yeah.
This book,
It's long.
yeah, for a young adult novel, it is long, but I don't think it's long and giving us anything. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yes, exactly. It is very long. It's very meaty. Not a whole lot happens, and I was shocked at how boring it is. I don't know what I was expecting, but for all of the ire that Twilight gets, I guess I thought it was going to be more ridiculous, and I don't know if the book really or the movie truly deserve the amount of backlash that they got. I think the backlash is mostly because of the fans. And because it was such a huge pop culture phenomenon, but the book for me was just surprisingly mundane.
I agree. I will say I liked a couple of things that I really liked about the book, which is surprising that I liked parts of this book. Like, for me, I was surprised reading it, and I was just like, oh. When it was over, I was kind of like, oh, okay, that wasn't that bad.
It didn't offend me.
Yeah, the portrayal of being a teenager was, I think it was kind of, well written, this idea of, I don't know, like this crazy teenage love where you're like, because you see each other every day at school and this is your everything. Kind of like what we talked about with Emma.
Right.
Where it's like this, you see each other all the time, you're fully involved and encompassed in this whole situation. But to that point, what is the time span of this book? Because she gets there, and I thought that maybe she was there at the beginning of the school year.
Right.
Because there is a prom at the end of the book.
Right.
So I thought this was like a year.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to wonder if it would maybe like the last 3 months of school, maybe?
Yeah. You know, I didn't question the time at all, and now that you say that, I'm like, wait a minute.
That was my whole thing because I I do have some issues with this book and who it's geared to, because this is a young adult novel. And I did read like The Hunger Games, you know.
I read The Hunger Games too, and I actually like them.
I really like them too, and I don't mean to compare the two because they're about two different subjects. But you have a main female character in The Hunger Games where I'm like, she's strong, she knows what she needs to do to survive.
Yeah.
And then we have Bella,
Yeah.
who seems to take on the role of damsel in distress a lot.
And mother.
Yes. And there was this great quote that I read when doing research on this stuff, by Ashley Renfro, that I found on medium.com, where she says, it's dangerous to teach young women that their own happiness should come second to the well-being of those they love. Mm-hmm. Such a lesson, combined with the other stereotypes represented in this novel, is a formula for abuse and unhealthy relationships. Mm-hmm. And I 100% agree.
Yeah, and you know, I know you said not that we were going to compare them, but with Hunger Games, like, I don't have any kids. I don't have plans for any kids other than doggies. But if I were to have a young person and I was saying, yeah, you know, that's something that you should read or not to read, the thing that I always liked about the Hunger Games was that it's if you increase the ages and the darkness just a little bit, it could be a Black Mirror episode. Yeah. I mean, it makes you question things about government and the economy and housing control. I mean, it makes you think about things beyond just whether or not these two teenagers are going to fuck. And with Twilight, at first I thought, you know, I remember people saying that it was toxic and bad. And I think that probably gets increased in the later novels, because in this one there's plenty of red flags, of course, but there's really nothing too bad about it. Like, it's not that bad. The problem's with Bella, where she's a damsel in distress. She doesn't really have any convictions. There's no reason for her to want to do certain things, and her as a character, I think, was purposefully made kind of bland. That way anybody could look at Bella and say, that's me. But it doesn't really give a good lesson about controlling your own fate.
Yeah. And she's a character that comes off having so much low self-esteem.
Yeah.
That anything that she does that could be considered positive is still considered a negative to her. And what I found troubling is, like, she immediately arrives in Forks. Her dad gives her what sounds like a really bomb truck, you know? And then every boy in that school is in love with her.
Yeah.
But like you said, she's basically plain white bread. Like, there's nothing to define. There's nothing that makes her different than anybody else. And yet every boy in that school is like, that's the girl for me. And I was like, I'm confused. Like, is there something special? Like, does she smell like, you know, fresh, ripe plums and grilled cheese sandwiches? Like, I'm confused.
I like how you thought about what would I find really attractive in a woman if I were a boy in Forks, and it's
grilled
flowers
cheese
and grilled cheese sandwiches.
Do you not like grilled cheese? Like, no, if it were a guy in Forks, I'm sorry, if it were a guy in Forks, from what my understanding, it would smell like rain, the lumber aisle from Home Depot, and like fried fish. Yeah. With an overtone of stale beer. That's what I imagine would be the perfume for this area. And I just don't understand, because it's literally like instantaneous. She walks into that first classroom and that one boy's just like, ooh, hey girl, what's up? And then the other guy was like, hey Bella, what's good? Everybody wants her. And I'm like, is everybody in the school a vampire and she's the only human? Like it.
I also thought it was funny that she gets there and immediately she's buying the groceries and making dinner for her dad.
Yeah.
That's kind of shitty. Like, she just got here. The dad should be doing those things. But then I thought about it, and, my parents were good when I was growing up and stuff. But when my mom was going back to college and she had night classes, and it was just my dad and I, usually it was me making dinner.
Yeah.
And I felt that. I was like, hey, wait a minute.
Well, that's...
Dads, even the good ones, you need to cook more. That's not fair.
Well, I don't want to jump too far ahead because I really want us to stick with talking about the book. But did you research about Stephenie Meyer?
A little bit, yes.
You know she's Mormon, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this book, for those...
It's very,
It is 100%... It just feels... It's funny because I asked Jesse... When I pulled up the information about the Mormon overtones in Twilight, I looked at Jesse and I was like, I think I just read a book trying to turn me into a Mormon. Because it's not glaringly obvious. It's not something that would, because some of the stuff that's being done and said, like, Bella doesn't drink coffee, or, she's basically only drinking like water and Diet Coke or whatever. Mm-hmm. She doesn't have any coffee. She doesn't have any alcohol. And that's a big thing in the Mormon faith, but that's also a thing like a teenager would do. So
right.
It's not these overly Mormonistic overtones, but there are weird things in it. Like there is the cooking and cleaning and doing the household chores.
Yeah.
And apparently in the Mormon faith, that's what the women do.
Right.
And that the Mormons believe that a human can become divine.
Yeah.
And that's all related back to how the Cullens are vampires, yet vegetarian vampires. And also this idea about angels.
Like one thing that you said about how, because it's got this Mormon backbone to it, but since they're teenagers, you kind of don't, it's not as obvious. And that's exactly what I was thinking, where there's this deep yearning between Bella and Edward, and it's that unrequited like horniness that teenagers have for each other, and your hormones are going crazy and you can't really do anything about it. But that's like very easily disguised if it's actually a Mormon thing going on. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Oh yeah. Because there's that whole, like, there's the big teachings about abstinence, which I mean
right.
all religions have, but to paint Mormonism over a vampire story is extremely interesting to me. Mm-hmm. Considering the two, it's just a really weird thing to do, but at the same time, I can see where you're going with this. Mm-hmm. But I think, yeah, like, because it's young adult, it's not something that will immediately jump out at you. I mean, I haven't read the other books, and maybe it's more prevalent in the other books. And I also found out while reading this that she wrote this book from the other perspective.
Yeah, and I'm actually kind of interested in that.
Me too. Because there's a lot of stuff that Edward does in this book that I'm like, I need more of a justification for your actions.
You mean like him standing in the corner watching her sleep, just like the Scarecrow did with
yes! Oh my God!
Wizard of Oz?
It's so creepy, right? It's so creepy.
Yeah. I found in this book Bella to be a lot more interesting than Edward, and Edward to be quite boring and a big asshole. He's always like kind of short with her and annoyed that she's there. And it's not just like the beginning when he smells her blood and he's kind of weird about it. Even once they're talking and like he takes her to dinner and then he's driving her, he's a big dick to her. I don't understand.
He's so mean. Like, that's where I feel like the relationship is kind of like verbally abusive.
Yes, agree.
Like, he has to, in his human life, he must have had like split personality disorder or something. Because he switches on a dime. One minute they're like horny in the woods for each other, and the next minute he's like, Oh God, he says some weird stuff. I'm sorry. He's like, you think you could run faster than me? And he's like running through the woods.
Okay.
I don't mean like the writing in this, the storyline makes sense. You know what I mean? Like the storyline has a thing. It kind of makes sense, but the writing.
Yeah. Wait, okay. All I could think about is just I'm fast as fuck, boy. Like I'm like he is 1,000% thinking that in his head as he's running all over the place like a lunatic.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And he's like screaming at her and stuff, but then none of it makes sense. And then one minute he's like half shirtless in the woods, all sparkly, covered in diamonds. Then the next minute he's running around like he's a puppy with the zoomies. He's like breaking stuff and showing off how macho he is. And then the next minute he's like, hey girl. Like, what has happened? Like in the span of those 4 pages, I got emotional whiplash and I wasn't even there.
Yeah.
It shouldn't feel that way, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's funny because it's like a pretty easy fix. He's a fucking vampire and they're teenagers. You can have it where they have really nice times together and then he's just like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I can't do this relationship with her right now. And then he pushes her away. Like, you can have him go hot and cold on her like a normal person and not just be like a total dick all the time.
Did you ever read the book The Game?
No.
It's about that's the pickup artist guy who had his own show on VH1.
Oh, ew, that guy?
Yeah, that's what this reminds me of. Like, because the whole point with the pickup artist stuff is that you're supposed to neg women. You're supposed to be negative, find something negative about
That's exactly what he does.
and be aloof and be like standoffish because apparently women are too stupid to realize that what you're doing is ridiculous and they think that it draws us into them like a moth to the flame. That is Edward. Edward is what was the name of that guy? I can't remember, but he wore a stupid hat. Put that stupid hat on Edward, and there you go. He's the pickup artist. Negging the whole time. I mean, that's the other thing is that there's this, and I loved this part in the book. And when we talk about the movie, I'm going to be upset about this part in the movie. There's this part in the book where it like had rained overnight, got really cold, and everything iced over. And Bella's at the parking lot at school, and she almost dies because she almost gets hit by a car. Raise your hand if you've ever been hit by a car. Just me.
Oh, no.
But she almost that was a sad joke. Sorry, everybody. Bella almost gets hit by a car, and Edward saves her. But what's great about that is that she hits her head on the ground and has to go to the hospital, and she is telling everybody she knows like what she saw. Like, Edward ran from one side of the parking lot and he saved me, and everyone's like, no, you must be confused, you hit your head really hard. And then he starts gaslighting her.
Yeah.
Like, gaslighting her really, really hard. And honestly, that part of the book made a lot of sense to me. Not the gaslighting, like the gaslighting is a jerky thing to do, but because he's trying to protect himself, you know, he doesn't want her to know that he's a vampire. So it makes sense for this to be happening. And I was reading it and I was like, I really enjoyed this for some reason. Like, I was really into that section of the book.
Yeah. Yeah. I do have a question for you.
Yes.
Why do Edward and Bella like each other?
I have no answer for you.
I have no answer for you either.
Like, I think Edward tries to explain it. Where he talks about how, like, her blood is different. And I think it's because that whole thing where... So, here's some fun... I think we have to talk about the new vampire traits developed by Twilight.
Yeah.
As compared to, like... So, I guess we should go back for a minute. Vampire traits, as set forth by Dracula, right? you have to have your, let's see, you have to have your consecrated grounds from your homeland with you. You can't enter a house uninvited, right? You can't. Once a person is bitten by a vampire, they become a vampire. If from Dracula, you can't go near someone with garlic.
They have to drink blood. They don't eat.
Yep.
Sun doesn't kill an actual Dracula. It just is weakened.
Yeah, it weakens.
Yeah.
And you can kill him by, putting a piece of wood through his heart. Twilight has some new rules for us. Vampires sparkle in the sun. They have venom in their teeth like a snake. That one for me was like, I'm sorry, what?
But they don't have fangs. They don't have like normal vampire fangs.
They have normal teeth.
Yeah.
They have normal teeth that have venom.
And they become extremely beautiful.
Yeah. Gorgeous. They don't need to breathe at all because he mentions being able to walk underwater. And apparently some of them develop these weird superpowers. And for Edward, it is mind reading. And I think that is why he likes Bella, because he cannot read her mind for some reason.
But without being able to read her mind, you would think he would ask her more questions and want to hear what she has to say.
Oh, Christina, don't be silly. She's a girl. No one wants to hear what she has to say.
I think about this, and I'm not saying that my love affair with my husband's better than Edward and Bella, but maybe it is. So when Carlos and I, when we looked at each other, we're like, hey, like there was an immediate attraction just on the surface level, But when we started dating, we specifically did this thing that I thought was cute at the time, and I think it's cute today, which is that we asked each other first date questions for like a whole weekend, where we're like just asking random questions and learning about each other and switching off like back and forth. And they started to do that in the book. Once they have their little like forest outing, they start asking each other questions, everything silly from like what happened in their childhood to their favorite colors. And I loved that part because I thought, finally, we're going to find out what's actually going on here on a mental level between them and what kind of connections that they're building. And then it gets skipped over.
Yeah.
They started and there's only like a couple back and forth and they briefly mention music. And I thought, okay, this is where it's going to be cool. They're going to find music as a connection between the two. Like he's this old dude and he's into older music and she likes it too. So maybe this is going to be the thing. And it's jumped over. And I felt like so unsatisfied by that. I would love to get more time between the two of them where they are actually engaging with each other other than just like smelling each other like weirdos.
It is weird. There's also a part where he drops her off at home and she I'm sorry, I had to I couldn't, he tells her to sleep well and then he blows air into her face. And I was like, what? Why would you write that he did that to her? That's so, in my notes I was like, I'm sorry, he blew what now? It's just, that's where, we'll have these great moments, like that whole scene with the almost being killed by getting hit by a car in a school parking lot scene. And then we'll have these great moments where it's teen angst and, just what it means to be a teenager. And the scary part where she's walking alone down that street and those guys are going to attack her and stuff. And then you get some things where it's not good. And so the lion fell in love with the lamb.
I know. It's just so melodramatic. You have to laugh. I wrote down a couple too. Okay, so she says the same line twice in different chapters. And it's, I passionately whispered. And I'm like, what? Who said that?
Can you passionately whisper right now for me, Christina?
No.
I felt the passion.
It's so weird because I don't think any normal person would ever recount a tryst to their friend and include that as a line, nor would they even include it in a diary. It's just so Oh, it's so heavy-handed. And then the other one is when this is jumping a bit, but after they're pursued by the hunter vampire and they're running away, she said something like, it's so I this isn't an exact quote, but it's something like, and with that, Edward was gone away from me, and I had to steal my heart. And I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah. No. Or what about so what you're saying is I'm your brand of heroin?
Yeah.
What I also found, like, the reason I struggle, like, not just with the writing, but with the timeline, as I'm going back through my quotes, is because when she is at the Cullens' house, I even wrote down, this is chapter 15, not end of book. There's this part where, like, it's before they go to the Cullens' house, I think. I think it's when they're, together in her room, in her bedroom. I don't remember this. But she whispers to him that she loves him, and he says, "You are my life now?"
Yeah.
How long have you guys haven't even been dating that long at this point.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
She says that she is unconditionally in love with him, which is ridiculous. Unconditional love is just, that's not a real thing.
No.
It doesn't exist. And if you think it exists, that's a horrible thing. When he's like, and I think this is a little bit more blatant and worse probably in the movie, but when he's like, I've killed people, and she's like, yeah, I'm cool with it. I could kill you. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
I want to kill you right now. Yeah, and I know, I'm down with it, buddy. Like, what? No.
Yeah.
These are giant red flags, and she's like, not only am I not listening, but I'm good.
Well, by the end of the book, she thinks she's going to be turned into a vampire. Mm-hmm. Mind you, I'm still thinking this book only takes place over like 3 months. Within 3 months, if Carlos had said something so outlandish to you, like, "Hey, I've killed somebody," would you just be like, "Oh, that's cool. I'll go to jail for you"? No.
No. No.
Like, if Jesse had said to me 3 months into our relationship, "BT dubs," and insert random thing here, I'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to have a longer conversation about this." Bella, on the other hand, is like, "Okay, cool."
There's better ways to get around that are not so unhealthy, where, like I said, you could still have him playing with the hot and cold. Like, sometimes he's just like, I can't do this is bad, and it's selfish of me to be in this relationship with you. And then that's when you can have him like, don't date me, I've killed people. And she can say something like, that was a long time ago, and you're a different person, everybody deserves a second chance. And, you know, if he's like, I know that's not who I want to be anymore, then that's like a little bit more understandable.
Yeah.
That you're taking someone, and everybody has a chance for a second chance at being who you want to be rather than who you are, you know, yada yada. That's a lot more healthy than just standing in the woods and going, yeah, okay, I'm good.
Yeah, at least have a part where she processes this information.
There's no processing of anything.
Because, I mean, even if somebody told me, hey, you know, like if Jesse had been like, you know, when I was 15, I was in jail. I'd be like, okay, well, we should talk about that and figure out what, you know, I need to know this information, especially if we're going to get married and buy a house. Like, that's going to show up. So we should talk about it. But it's like, even her saying, like, that was a long time ago, it's okay. I think there still needed to be a moment where Bella processes this information, because she's very adamant. Like, she's asking a lot of questions very early on about how to be turned into a vampire. Very early on. In fact,
I'm sorry. I just
Yeah.
had the weirdest thought.
What?
Even in Titanic, when Leo runs to Rose and he pins her in that one room and he's like, "You're drowning, Rose." And she takes that and processes it. And then that's when she goes out later and they make out in front of the ship, where she's like, "I thought about it." Like, even Rose takes a nap and has some tea and thinks about it for an hour and a half. And Bella does none of that.
Yeah, it's like, I know from doing my research and stuff that the book was written from the from the sparkly vampire in the woods moment to the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then she went back and developed the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't think enough time was spent developing
Yeah.
a lot of the book because there's so many random parts in it where you're just like, if there had been one extra chapter where we get to sit with Bella and we get to understand, like, why is she okay with everything that she's heard from him and his family, and why is she okay with turning into a vampire when she can't seem to let go of her mom and dad?
Right.
Like, it's like she doesn't fully understand that that when you're a vampire you live forever. Everyone else around you will eventually cease to exist.
Right.
So by you doing some of the actions that you do in this book, you're kind of negating the idea that you really want to be a vampire.
Yeah.
So the two halves of the book, honestly, almost the entirety of the book is like the pre-stuff. And then you have like 4 chapters at the end that is all action.
Action that also gets skipped over.
Yeah.
Not to jump to the end, but like at the end when there's the whole bit inside of the ballet studio and she gets bit and everything, I was like, are you really going to skip over the very end of this like battle and we don't get to see it, we're going to have to hear about it? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
All this build up and then there's not even as much of a payoff.
Yeah. It felt very rushed because I don't even remember how many chapters there are in this. Maybe because I was just looking at one of the screenshots I took from the book, and it was about 500 pages in, and there's only like 700 some odd pages in the book, and at 500 we're still playing baseball. The American pastime for everyone, including vampires, apparently. I was so... Especially after watching...
What we do in the
shadows when they did the kickball, I was like, I'm done. I quit. I don't hate her. I was like, I was so done at that point. I was like, I don't want to read anymore. But
you know what we do in the shadows was the only thing keeping me from not completely laughing. Like, I thought I did a pretty good job of like reading this and watching it with an open mind, except for What We Do in the Shadows playing in my brain constantly and all of their jokes about Twilight.
Yeah. Guillermo's so in love with Twilight. When he's upstairs and he's... Anyways.
I was thinking of the movie when he's like, "Hi, you seen Twilight?
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
the guy. I'm the guy from Twilight.
I'm the guy from Twilight."
That's me.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, by like 500 pages into the book, we're still just developing our main characters. Like, we just met the entire Cullen family at 500 pages. Now it's literally like a car with its brakes cut until we get to the end.
It makes perfect sense that she started with the forest and then went back to clean up the front part and give some sort of backstory. But at the same time, it's so weird because there's so much at the beginning that I just think is overkill and overwriting.
Yeah.
Where you see her make food so many different times. Like, she makes steak and potatoes and she makes fish. And then there's a lot of overkill with details when she's listening to music and then she gets high on like cough syrup so she can fall asleep. And it's just like, I don't know why I'm getting all these details. And then later on, when it's supposed to be Bella and Edward connecting, that's kind of glossed over. Like, why did you overwrite in this section, but then not really give me what I'm wanting later on? Like, that's the type of calm moment that I would more look forward to.
I mean, honestly, we got more of that when she first meets Jacob on that beach trip.
Exactly. Yeah. And that part was funny for me because Jacob just so immediately opens up and tells her everything, but he does it in a way where it's like, is this real or is it not real?
Yeah.
But yeah, you would think that there would be more moments with Edward like that.
Yeah. And I did find it interesting considering what I've seen from the movies, and by that I do mean like still shots and movie posters and all of the memes on the internet, because that's what keeps me going. There's a lot of Jacob.
Yeah.
Like I imagine he plays a really big role. I have
Later
like
on.
I'm not like naive to some of the things that have been said about Twilight online. So I know, especially at the very end of the entire series, he plays a very crazy role in some stuff. But he's so not a thing in this book that I'm surprised that he became a thing.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't make sense.
I thought he was bigger. I thought that it was more like, I knew that she had a friend because I knew that Anna Kendrick was in the movie. So
Yeah.
I was like, so she's got to meet like friends here or whatever. And I thought that Jacob was a bigger character because I always like thought of it almost like Phantom of the Opera. Like he was
Yeah.
the, what?
Raoul.
Exactly. I thought that he was like her childhood bestie and they hadn't seen each other for years. So I thought that he was a bigger part in the first book as being a closer friend. But they're so distant to the point where he almost thinks that she might have forgotten him. Like
Yeah.
he's really not that big of a deal, which was a surprise to me.
Yeah, and he's, honest to goodness, he's barely in the book.
Yeah.
His only purpose in the book is to tell her the legend about the cold ones.
Yeah. Which is so stupid.
I'm sorry, I tried not to laugh while I said it.
Well, you know, it's funny too because when you say the cold one to me, I think of beer. Like that's something that my dad would say, like, "Oh, go get yourself a cold one," and then I come back and it's Robert Pattinson.
Oh my God. What was he doing in your refrigerator, Christina? I know he's a method actor, but like this is getting to be too much.
He's supposed to be method and a weirdo, so he could easily be in one of our refrigerators.
I should probably go check. He should. Rob? But it is just like, it's just bizarre because we're gonna talk about the movie, and it's bizarre seeing how that character translated.
Yeah. One of my favorite little trivia things for the book is that, you know her original name for the book?
Forks.
Yeah. Her original name of the book is Forks, which is a terrible name. And her publisher was like, that's a terrible name. You've got to change the name. And then they landed on Twilight. But can you imagine, like, oh, did you read that new book? Forks?
The sequel would be called Spoons.
Yeah. And then finally, when all the worlds merge, it's Sporks.
No, Spork would have to be the version from Edward's point of view.
Oh, God.
It's just, God, this book. It's not that the book, I'm trying to like, because I know I'm going to have a lot, I know I'm not making any sense right now. I'm not saying complete sentences at all, because it's difficult for me to say, the words won't come from my brain to my mouth, is what I'm trying to say right now. Because when we talk about the movie, I don't think it's going to be nearly as positive as we were about the book. Like, if we took away some of the negative writing aspects, added in a couple more chapters to fill out Bella's, whole mindset around everything.
It might not be that bad.
Yeah, I think this book just needed a little bit of zhuzhing up, and it probably would have been a little bit better. It could have been, I don't want to say it's on par, like, I don't want to say it's not on par with Harry Potter, because at that time, that's what everyone was reading, was Harry Potter's, Twilight's, Hunger Games.
Yeah.
But there's something that Harry Potter has that, the Hunger Games and Twilight didn't. And I think it's just the writing wasn't, I don't want to give this woman any credit because I'm not her fan, but the way she who must not be named wrote Harry Potter, it seemed like she wrote it for adults, but the ideas around the school and all the witches and wizards and stuff catered really well to young adults. Where this book felt like it was written for young adults.
Yeah, and you think about Harry Potter, and this extends to a lot of different stuff, like Lord of the Rings. Like, people love lore and background and deep dives. Yeah. And I think that that's something that Hollywood has been completely unable to embrace until essentially the Marvel Universe. Like, they didn't think that people liked continuity and those background stories and all of that. And from what I understand with Twilight, and I remember multiple people saying that they're like, we don't care about Edward and Bella. It's the later books where you find out about Alice and you find out like other things that I remember several different people saying that. And I'm somewhat morbidly curious about the remainder of the books just from that perspective and if it's true or not, because I didn't get any of that with this book. If anything, it felt extremely lazy when you've got Edward giving a little bit of a background of the Cullens, and he's talking about how he was he had the Spanish influenza, and he's talking about the doctor and his whole backstory, and it just felt like she spent 4 minutes on Wikipedia looking up to make sure she had the right empire and the right year. Like, is it the 1200s or 1300s? I'm not sure. Let me double check. Okay, got it. And that's it. And it doesn't feel like there's really much of a rich history where with She Who Must Not Be Named in Harry Potter and like Lord of the Rings, like it just keeps going and going. And even though I'm not a big fan of the Fantastic Beasts, that proves that people just like the backstory and these rich histories. And with Twilight, like it's just bland.
Yeah, everything with Twilight felt very surface level. Like when I'm reading a book that I know is from a series, usually at the end of that book, I'm like, well, I need to read the next one because there was something that happened in this that I know is going to be super explained in the next one. This one didn't feel like it had anything left.
Yeah.
So I'm actually surprised at how many books she was able to come up with. So if that's what people are saying, that there's more information, because at the end of this book, we do find out kind of something sad about Alice, in that she was kept in like an insane asylum, and she was going through shock therapy, and then we'd never talk about it.
No.
So maybe that is expanded upon in one of the other books, and I would like to know what her process system is like now, knowing like, hey, you were considered insane.
Right.
That's why you have no memories. Like, that would be sad.
Yeah.
So maybe we have to do, Twilight Revisited. I know. Oh, trust me, I know. But if that's what it takes, like, I don't know. Like, we're going to talk about the movie. I don't know.
Wait, when we get to the end of this podcast and we start doing our ranking, I'll be honest, this is not at the bottom. There's plenty of other books that we've talked about, not only this year, but last year too, that I would definitely put below Twilight. Like, same. Twilight's not the worst. It's not the worst. And like I said, I feel kind of bad that it got so much hate, and I can see why. You've got crazy fans being crazy, and then you tell them that it's shit. They're just going to get more hype about it and go to defend it. So it's like this stupid war was built around hating Twilight. And some of it, I think back, and I think it's completely blown out of the water, where I remember so many people joking about how they're vegetarians. They're not vegetarians. They get their blood from animals. Yeah. So they jokingly refer to themselves as vegetarians. And I remember people talking about them being vegetarians, and I thought, oh, so that means they're eating carrots. And that's pretty stupid. But that's not the case.
No, it's more like having turkey bacon instead of regular bacon.
Exactly.
You're just swapping out a different protein.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't eat seafood. Mm-hmm. So that's it. All they're doing, they're pescatarian.
Yeah.
If they're anything, they're pescatarian, not vegetarian. They still eat meat. Well, blood from meat. It's definitely not at the end of the list, but I definitely think that it just needs a little bit of zhuzhing up. And this is why I really want to, I think I might actually read the book from Edward's perspective, because that literally just came out last year, 2020. So
Was it real? I thought it was longer than that.
no, apparently it just came out.
Oh.
So I think it'd be interesting to read that and see what a difference, like from 2005 when the first book came out to 2020, how the writing style might have changed.
Yeah.
Unless
I
you
would hope
started
would
writing
be.
it back then.
Yeah.
I guess we'll find out if we read it. If I read it, I will do a recap on another episode.
No, maybe we read it together and then that's like a bonus episode.
We should probably do that. I think we should do that. I think we should.
Yeah.
I think we should see it from Edward's perspective, and maybe that'll change a lot of what we thought.
Yeah.
So
Maybe.
stay tuned.
We'll talk about it.
We're gonna get to it, y'all.
Of a sidebar conference.
Yeah. But in the meantime, I think we need to talk about this movie.
Okay. Okay. I mean, this movie, like I said, it's a cultural phenomenon. This is a huge behemoth of a film.
Yeah.
And this is you said it was the first time you watched it?
I thought I had seen this, and maybe I have just seen clips on like Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, because there was stuff that was happening in this movie that I was just like, wait, did I see this movie before? Because if I had seen this movie, I would have remembered. And then I was like, there was a part where I literally paused the movie and I looked at Jesse, and Jesse's like, are you okay? And I was like, I don't think I've seen this movie at all. I think I lied when I said I saw it.
Well, the movie is a 2008 film directed by Catherine Hardwicke. The one that I know her really well for is that she did 13, which is the Evan Rachel Wood movie from like the early 2000s. So it is a female director. Stars Robert Pattinson, Kristen Stewart, and the plot, everything, characters, almost completely the same. There's just a couple characters that were basically like morphed together. The tone is probably a little bit more of a personal touch from the director. I think that she controlled a lot of that, but other ways it's really mincing words where you get into the differences.
Yeah, I'm going to start off by saying that I think a lot of the issues with the film might also be because Stephanie Meyer had such a heavy hand in the film, including making sure specific lines from the book were in the movie verbatim.
Right.
And we've talked about this before, where when a book has, like, for example, Ready Player One, where the book was so heavy about Steven Spielberg, and then Steven Spielberg directed the film, and then it became too much. Mm-hmm. I think that's the same problem that Twilight might have, where she wrote the book, then she got to be a part of every bit of the creative process.
Yeah.
And I think you need to really separate the two.
Yeah.
Yeah. They should be able to stand alone a little bit while still being companion pieces. But this was just...
I think I'm starting to think this more and more about everything, because I used to be super hardcore into, well, don't tell that director what to do and change what, she's doing. They're the artist. They can do whatever they want. But really, you do need other people in the room. Yeah. And we just watched Midnight Mass, which was directed and written by Mike Flanagan. And I really like everything he does. And I liked Midnight Mass, so don't get me wrong. But there's so many monologues, and it's so overwritten. And I understand it's from a very personal place from him. So because of that, I think it was too personal.
Yeah.
And I think it's overwritten. And if you had someone else maybe going, let's ease on the brakes here and change it up just a little bit, it would have been better. Sometimes you need other people to tell you no. And as a writer, the first thing that you should do is probably get Stephanie Meyer out of the room.
Yeah. Like, that's when it's too close to home, it's not going to be what it should be. Like, you're not giving it a chance to grow. Mm-hmm. And that I think is where the trouble started with the Twilight film. And then I think it's followed by I know that now she is a better actress. Like I'm so excited
Yeah.
to see her as Princess Diana, but Kristen Stewart, girl, no.
It's bad. It's so bad. And I don't know why. I think it's because Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart, both as individuals, are so clearly, over Twilight and have been quite vocal about it. And I don't want to like hate on anybody, but her acting in this movie is so bad. It makes me physically uncomfortable.
Yeah. There's just something, because it's funny. We talked about Bella in the book being kind of like, the housekeeper, blah, blah, blah. But at least she kind of had a backbone a little bit.
Exactly.
Bella in the movie, not only does she have no backbone, she's also like a terrible friend.
She really is. She's a terrible friend. And yeah, in the book, she's a little bit more feisty.
Yeah.
She talks back to Edward. She talks back to her dad and the guys in the school that are hitting on her. And she definitely has more of a conviction to everything that she says and does. And in the movie, she's just kind of like thrown around like a rag doll.
Yeah. Like, some of my favorite parts from the book are when she's like, especially when they're coming up with the plan to get her out of town. And she yells
Right.
at them and is like, I can't just leave. And she
Yeah.
keeps yelling until they listen to her.
She comes up with a plan to escape.
Movie Bella is just like, Movie Bella is like, when you do a group project and there's that one person that just wants their name on it? That's Bella. And she spends a majority of her time, like, there's specific lines in the book where they're like, where Bella mentions like, oh, biting her lip in frustration, blah, blah, blah. That is everything and the only thing she does in this movie. And I know a lot of people have brought that up like 100 times over, but it bears repeating. That's all she does.
It's the biting. It's this weird Woody Allen-esque, like, neurotic moving around constantly and mouth breathing and just staring agape at people and being... you see where people talk about, like, the Hollywood glow and the Hollywood presence and how some people, even if they're not necessarily the most attractive person, you put a camera on them and the camera loves them. It's so weird because it's like she's physically fighting against being something that the audience would like to watch.
Yeah.
Everything is just so twitchy and nervous and it's not good.
No, it's not good at all. And it's funny because when we first meet the Cullens in the cafeteria scene, in the book, there is a whole thing where it's just like they are loners. They don't want to be noticed. They just want to blend in. You get to the movie, and this is just like Harry Potter when Dumbledore's like, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire? And in the book, he says it real calm, and in the movie, he's crazy. In the movie, these vampires are crazy. They're dancing into the room. They're like holding hands and kissing each other. But in the book, it's like, oh, that's all rumors and speculation. In the movie, they're just like, we're vampires.
I have to say, though, that the biggest change for me between book and movie that I was shocked that I actually enjoyed is Robert Pattinson.
Yeah.
Like, Edward, I don't think he tells a single joke in the book. He's mostly an asshole. Like, if I put together words to explain him, asshole's probably the first one. And Edward in the movie, even though, like, I laughed out loud so many times at the beginning when he's, like, smelling her and freaking out. Like, it's so funny. But...
He looks like he's constipated.
He really does. He looks like he's shitting himself. It's very funny. But when he actually gets into... talking to Bella, probably like starting with the woods scene and then going on, and then you see him like get out of the car with her and he's got like the Ray-Bans on. I'm like, I like him.
Yeah.
And I think he's kind of funny. And I think that where he is being that weird, Byronic hero, it works. And I don't know if it's because it's Robert Pattinson or, the way he looks, if it was the directing, but there's definitely a big change in his personality. Like, he must have sucked the life out of Bella because whatever she had in the book is gone. And whatever he didn't have in the book is definitely in the movie.
Well, I wonder if it just has, like, I honestly, if you put the two of them in a room right now, I feel like Robert Pattinson, even though yeah, he's method and people say he does like weird methody things, I feel like I would gel more with him as just like a regular person. I feel like he's super chill. Like he doesn't seem to take himself too seriously, and I think he added
Yeah.
that into
Yeah.
Edward, especially that part when he gets out of the car and he puts those sunglasses on. Like
Yeah.
I love it, especially because they make such a big deal about how overcast and cloudy and miserable
Yeah.
this town is, and he gets out of the car and throws on sunglasses. I'm like, it must be pitch black. You must not be able to see anything.
All right.
Like, cool. You're probably bumping into walls and all this.
I had a weird connection in my brain where I'm watching it and there's definitely the female gaze on Robert Pattinson and on Edward, and I really liked it, and it reminded me of another female directed movie that we did, which was American Psycho, and the female gaze on Christian Bale.
Yeah.
And just like making these guys into pieces of meat. And I realized something which I thought was really interesting, where there's an androgyny to Edward and to the vampires in general just because they're so pretty, but Robert Pattinson, I have the exact shade of lipstick that he's wearing in Twilight. It's a Besame, it's rose, it's like a very soft red, it's very pretty, and he's wearing the exact same lipstick. And the way that like just his skin glows and they all have the hair, even Jacob has the long hair. Like there's something interesting where it's a female directing it and she's doing the female gaze, but women I think are a lot more open and into that androgynous look of men, where even Christian Bale, Patrick Bateman has a skincare routine.
Yeah.
And there's a whole section about just what he does for self-care. You don't see that the same way with women. Like, there is something about it that opens it up larger than just the male gaze and we're looking at Gal Gadot's ass. Like, there's more of a psychological component to making Edward into something that is dangerous and rebellious and beautiful that works in the film that really doesn't do anything for me in the book.
I agree. I'm so jealous that you have the matching vampire lip shade. A lot of people are going to be jealous. But
I swear to God, it's the same color. I'm looking at it. I'm like, that's Besame. I don't know if they made that color back then, but that's what it is.
we found a dupe, y'all. We found a dupe.
It's Dusty Rose, guys. It's like $12.
It's, it is interesting. And it's not something I really thought about when watching the movie, but it is true. There is this, it's something that I think they might have pulled from the book into the movie, this idea of angelic, because when you think about angelic features, it's usually applied to women. You know, blonde hair, blue eyes, she looks like an angel, walks like an angel, those sort of musical lyrics, but yet we're applying it to a deadly weapon, basically. Mm-hmm. And it is interesting to think about it in that respect. And I think more of that needs to be shown. I think more men need to be more comfortable with this semi-femininity, because that's not what people like. Women don't want, the Fast and the Furious.
No.
Like that is an unrealistic expectation. I'm more willing to find an Edward Cullen than I am to find a Vin Diesel, okay?
That's exactly it. I mean, if you ask a guy, what do you think chicks want? And then he grabs the game book and puts on an Ed Hardy hat, you don't get it. Like, that's not it. When you've got a female director and she's making some guy, supposed to be irresistible, it's not going to be like Guy Fieri and Vin Diesel as the vampires. It's not what you're going to get. And it's interesting that I don't know if guys are okay with accepting that. Like, you think about, I think that there was some sort of a trivia fact where, what's the guy's name? The meathead vampire, Colin?
Emmett,
okay. That actor was upset because the scheduling didn't work out where he was in a movie prior to Twilight where he had to have a buzz cut. And he normally has curly hair, so they wanted him to have like thick, luscious, longer, curly hair so that all the vampires were really attractive, and he couldn't. And then the other one is the doctor. They didn't want him to wear a wig. They wanted it to look real, so he really did bleach his hair, and I think someone else did too. And it's this thing of like, we're getting the hottest guys, the hottest girls, and we're making them look as good as possible. But then you take Kristen Stewart, who normally has green eyes, and you give her brown contacts, and you take her hair and she's wearing a wig, that way it doesn't look so regular. Like, you're actually making her less attractive, and then the guys are taking on almost feminine qualities.
Yeah. We're boosting up even like all the women, really, when you think about it, like Rosalie, who's supposed to be the most gorgeous of all the vampires, and Alice, who's supposed to be like basically fluid motion constantly. Even them as the actors in this movie aren't nearly as like gorgeously beautiful, shining, shimmering, splendid diamonds as all the male vampires are. Like these male vampires, and I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit to our next episode. It's the same kind of situation, I feel like, in Interview with the Vampire. Mm-hmm. This idea that men can express themselves is not something that we normally see. I mean, we have Edward playing the piano. That's what women want, men who can play them songs that they wrote for them. I don't care if you built a car and you jumped it out of an airplane and all that stuff. Cool. Maybe that'll be fun like once a year. But the rest of the year, if you could act more like a sparkly diamond vampire, maybe that'd be kind of fun.
Well, remember in Parks and Rec, the episode where they take Ben for a treat yourself, and then he gets the Batman costume and he can finally release, and he starts to cry wearing it? Like, guys, just go get manicures, get a nice shampoo and a blowout, and feel pretty, and just do what you need to do. Whether it's a Batman suit or, well, I mean, you got Pattinson who's doing both, I guess. Like, you can do it. You can do it.
If Robert Pattinson can be both Batman and a sparkly, shiny diamond, you can be both too.
I did think when she gets in trouble with those guys on the street, like they're going to mug her or whatever, and he shows up, I'm like, this is Batman. Like, he shows up and then he saves her, and then he gets in the car and he's driving it all crazy, and I'm like, this is Batman.
It is Batman. That should have been his audition for Batman. Just submit that. Just submit that. And honestly, I don't think those guys just wanted to mug her.
Well...
In the book, it's more, it's announced a little bit more that they were thinking something else because he says that to her. But I guess, in the movie, it's a little bit of a fine line. But I still think they wanted to do something else.
But I'm not catching what you're dropping. It just keeps getting higher. I just hear dogs barking.
I think they wanted to take her home and play Grape Escape.
Oh, fun!
Yeah, and Edward ruined it.
Edward ruined the whole night.
Come on.
They're like, we're gonna get some pizza rolls and orange soda on the way home. It's gonna be a good time.
We're gonna stop at Blockbuster. What? There's some stuff that's also really weird in the movie that they added, and I don't think they needed to add, and that's the murders. Like, well, actually, now that I've said that out loud, I think the murders would have worked better in the book, because in the book, they kind of set up like, oh, there's some other vampires in the area. Nothing to worry about. Let's play baseball. In the movie, that information is never given to Bella, ever. In fact, that information's never really said out loud until they're already playing baseball. But with the foreshadowing of the murders, we know that something else is happening. But because that information's never said, those murders feel like they're second place. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel like it fits.
And it would have been this is again where if I could be the editor of this book, like, we could do some magic here. Where you could almost make this like a, you know, woman in the window, Gone Girl level, like, mystery where murders are actually happening, and it's Bella's dad of all people who is with the police, and he's the one running the investigation, and they're suspicious of the Cullens, but it's really not them, and she's having this love affair, and then that's when Jacob tells her, and he's the one that spills the beans on them being vampires, and, you know, goes into his history or whatever. Like, that actually sounds badass, like a mystery thriller romance thing, but
no lie, I literally have in my notes, would be better if someone else was murderer. Like, shut up. You literally just read my mind on this. And it would be better.
Oh my god, I'm Edward and I'm reading your mind.
Oh my god. Oh my god. It's a vampire and he's reading my mind. I'm okay with it though.
Yeah,
you can't tell, but I'm biting my lip, so.
Breathing through my nose. No, but that would get a lot more conflict, and it would make sense for her dad and Jacob to be bigger players, and it makes the Cullens more outcasts and interesting, and then she could even have moments like, is he killing people? Maybe he is.
Yeah, and then we could have this great moment where she's like, we can't be together because I don't trust you. Yeah. Until we find out that and then she gets in danger, just like she does, and she finds out who the real killer is. Oh my god, that'd be so much fun. Christina, TM, we own this vampire detective novel. TM, everyone shut up.
Well, what we can do is just 30 Days of Grey? What is it?
Oh, 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh, 50 Shades.
30. We're a little bit lighter. Okay, you guys.
50 Shades. Sorry. So bad.
We don't go all the way. We only go to 30.
I am so bad with remembering numbers and things. I have said the name of that thing wrong so many times. And I'll also say, oh yeah, it's a movie. It was produced by A22. Carl's is like, what, the Bobo Studio, A22? Who the fuck are they?
The only studio that'll produce our vampire detective
A22.
A22.
But no, we just do it like that, where we take the actual, like, product and we just rework it and give it a different name.
Yeah.
Boom. Done.
Everyone stop listening. This is ours now. I want to ask you if you saw something that I saw in the movie that cracked me up.
Uh-oh.
So, Bella goes to, was it Port Angeles or whatever?
Yes.
I almost said Los Angeles. She doesn't go to Los Angeles. She goes to Port Angeles with her friends so they could buy their prom dresses, because she doesn't want to go to prom, because in the movie we skip over the fact that there's 2 dances, not 1, which definitely speeds up the timeline here, which makes it basically about a month-long dating experience, but they're in love, whatever. So they go to Port Angeles and she's like, I have to go to this bookstore. So I'm going to go to the bookstore. And then she comes back after all of her trauma and her, I don't know, ravioli eating. And she goes home and she Googles the information from the book. She ends up on this website. And first of all, the first website she goes to does have a MySpace link, which cracked me up. But then she goes to a site all about the demons of the night and their origins. And the only links available to these demons of the night, aka vampires, she can check out the China, Egypt, India, Peru, Japan, South America, and the Pacific Northwest. Yeah. That's it. So the next time I'm run into somebody in New York City who's like, I'm a vampire, I'm going to be like, no, you're not. You guys live in the Pacific Northwest. Don't fool me. I saw it in Twilight.
Just imagine, like, you go to, like, Epcot, and it's, like, the China Pavilion, Japan Pavilion, Canadian Pavilion, the Pacific Northwest Pavilion.
It's like every vampire lives in Washington State.
Right? Yeah, that is a weird category to have.
It was so bizarre because It was so bizarre to the point that I had to stop it and rewind it. And then literally before we recorded this, I was like, I have to make sure that wasn't a fever dream. And I made Jesse watch it with me. And Jesse's like, really? I was like, yeah. So sorry everywhere else in the world. Sorry, original Dracula. You don't even make the cut. So you're lying. You were never born in Transylvania. You were born in Washington State, USA. Or China.
There's one big difference between the book and the movie that I missed from the book because of it made me laugh. So the cover of the book it's two pale hands holding a red apple, and it can be assumed that the hands are female from the way that you look at it. And in the book, she's eating lunch, and then she is toying with him and goes to hand him the apple. So it's like the whole Adam and Eve thing and, yada, yada. Then in the movie, it's like the apple drops and then Edward catches it as if it's like the cover of the book. And the thing that made me laugh in the book was that she is toying with him with the apple, but on that plate she also had pizza. Yeah. And she could have easily grabbed the pizza instead. And I thought, what would the world be like if the cover of Twilight was two hands holding a slice of cheese pizza instead of an apple? I want to live in that world.
I think I would have read the book in 2005.
Twilight, and it's just like glistening cheese pizza. She had 2 inches between the pizza and the apple. She could have made history, but no, I had to pick that apple.
Chose the apple. Because of course she did. It's biblical.
Ugh, I get it.
Right?
I get it.
I know. Stop beating a dead horse at this point, okay? The Cullens need to eat that horse because they're pescatarians.
I also wondered, and I'm not trying to. I wondered because that's like Jacob's grandfather in the wheelchair, right?
Yeah.
So is there like a werewolf in a wheelchair?
Oh my god, wait, is he like one of those dogs that has 2 back wheels for life?
Oh, he's got like the Forrest Gump leg braces when he turned into a werewolf.
They're all running down the street and he's behind with one squeaky wheel.
He's still got his heart, guys. Yeah. And also, when did the injury happen? Like, was he in a wheelchair a long time ago? Did he have to put a cone on?
He does not like the cone of shame.
As someone with a dog that has back injuries and needs help, I can only imagine like Jacob like toying, like having to put pills and peanut butter for his grandpa to eat, because it's very difficult with a dog and a back injury.
Well, wait, in What We Do in the Shadows, they have to take their heartworm medicine. Do these werewolves have to take heartworm medicine?
Flea medicine, heartworm medicine, it's a real problem.
Like, but so in the book, I think they talk about his injury, and that's why he got rid of the truck, because he couldn't drive it anymore. And that's why Bella had the truck when she shows up at her dad's house in the book. And it's completely different in the movie. But they don't talk about his injury at all in the movie. Like, at all, exclamation point. But can he turn into a werewolf is the big thing. Like, is everybody from that reservation area like werewolfy, or just like a couple of them?
I guess we gotta read the next book.
No, see, you tricked me. Now you got me thinking about it, and now I'm gonna end up reading the book, and I'm gonna send you a message and be like, girl, here's the tea on werewolves. Because that's the other thing, is that in the book and in the movie, like, well, I guess not in the movie, in the book, she finds out all this information from Jacob, who talks about how his people were, like, basically shapeshifters or whatever. Does not faze her whatsoever. Doesn't care. Only cares about vampires. In the movie, she gets all her information from that book, not from Jacob. Jacob kind of, like, toes the line about some of it. Like, because in the movie, she's like, well, why did he say that about the Cullens? He's like, oh, an old legend about the cold ones, and that's basically it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't carry the same effect as it does in the book. Right. And I wish they would have left that intact, but I mean, what, were they just nervous about watching these two characters try and flirt?
I don't know.
Because, like, in the book, I feel awkward for Bella in the book.
Yeah.
And feel awkward watching Kristen Stewart try and flirt, too.
I know. I was going to say, like, I still feel awkward.
Yeah, still awkward. Still extremely awkward.
I do like it's lessened in the movie, but when it's like her friends are buying the dresses and they eat without her, and then he's like, oh, I got to make sure Bella eats. And he takes her to the restaurant. In the book, I feel like he was very concerned. You gotta make sure you eat. And it just felt so like little kid, like a babysitter making sure so that they get the tip and they don't get yelled at for not feeding the kid. Like why is he so concerned that she eats? Chill out, bro.
It felt very much like the entirety of that book, he treats her like a child. Like, he's constantly carrying her and cradling her. It was very weird. It was very weird.
And that's not a lie. That sounds so silly the way you just said it.
Yeah.
But it's the truth.
It's literally written in the book where she said something like, he cradled me as we like laid on his couch. And it's like, oh God, if Jesse tried to cradle me, I would have to stab him. Like, don't hold me like a small child. Hell, our dog doesn't even want to be held in the cradling position. No one wants to be held that way. It's making my skin crawl to say that he cradled her like a baby. But I wonder.
You could make that interesting, though. You could have it where he's like, when I got turned, I was 17, and this is new, just as new for me as it is for you. I've never done this before, and maybe just the way that he, well,
like,
no,
he doesn't know how to hold a human. He's like, one minute she's over his shoulder, the next she's under his arm like a football. Like, I don't know.
No,
this is new for me.
If you're a vampire and if you've got forever, okay, and you love, and this is a connection that's deeper than just she's cute, I like her butt, like, maybe just things are different where he's not going to be the same horny 17-year-old that's just trying to, like, mash at your boobs. Like, maybe he just treats it differently, and he's just like, I just want to hold you. I just want to sit here and be with you.
I just want to hold you like a small child. I mean, when you think about their ages, technically she would be a baby compared to him. He's over 100. So maybe that's...
Give me push pops.
I don't want Binky. Edward's at the restaurant like, make way for the choo-choo train. I'm 17.
He keeps buying me bonnets.
About the food thing, though, my thought process about that was because he can smell her blood, which there's the whole
blood sugar.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, I would love. So my dad has diabetes. Should I get him a vampire?
So you think Edward's coming up like, Bella, you got to cut down on the sodium.
Yeah. Oh, I don't have to go to the doctor. I have a vampire at home.
So he's like one of those those dogs, the dogs that people carry around who, like, sense the change in the blood.
Yeah.
So there's a repetitive thing about men treating women like babies, because sometimes they are.
Yes.
Why?
Yeah, I don't understand the idea behind the babying. I don't get it. Like, okay, would you like it if Carlos every single day babied you?
Goo goo gaga. No. I would lose my shit. And I even said, because yesterday we were talking and it occurred to me, I'm like, have you ever had your own bedroom? Because growing up, he had his brother and then he had roommates and, once you get married and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's only had his own bedroom for select times in his life, whereas I'm an only child. And I grew up with my own bedroom the whole time. So for me, I find I am definitely an introvert. So I get my power sometimes from being alone. Like I have to have my space sometimes. Like just a place, even if I don't need it. Like I can go a whole day without coming into my study, but just knowing that it's there is important for me to know that I've got like a safe space. And the idea of someone carrying me around like a baby every day, no thank you.
Yeah. Like I will not lie, there will be moments in my life where I'm like, man, these feet don't want to do that thing.
Right.
But that's not an everyday occurrence. Like if Jesse and I were to go to bed tonight and I'm like, good night, and he goes, good night, and then he picks me up and cradles me, I would have to be like start thinking of an escape plan because that's some Dateline Secrets Uncovered stuff. And I'm not ready. I'm not ready for my husband to murder me.
Do you guys cuddle? We cuddle a lot.
Yeah, but cuddling is different than being cradled like a baby.
Yeah.
Like, the book specifically states she is being cradled. And that is something that the movie doesn't do.
No.
Thank God. Oh my God. He carries her on his back like she's wearing a baby Bjorn, but he doesn't ever carry her. And since we've officially reached that part, do you think calling her Spider Monkey was 100% in the script, or do you think he made it up?
I don't think he was allowed to make things up.
That means somebody got money for writing the line, hold on, Spider Monkey? I refuse to believe that is true. That somebody wrote that and that he made those sounds come out of his mouth.
See, I think that the director here actually did a pretty decent job at quite a few things. There's a lot of failures, and I think the treatment of Bella is probably the biggest problem.
Yeah.
Like, that's by far the biggest problem. But there is a mood. The whole thing is under a very fun Instagram filter. Everything's like blue, gray, and green, and she tried really fucking hard to make him that kind of like Wuthering Heights, very like gloomy, dramatic, but still very desirable as a guy. And I think a lot of that's successful, but it's like, how do you work so hard to get that stuff in line so that it works? And then you've got spider monkeys and silly plot holes and weird jumps in logic and not enough like character development. It's so weird.
It's funny because what the book is missing, the movie has, and what the movie's missing, the book has.
Yeah.
And it's just...
Well,
ish.
There's still some stuff missing.
Yeah, ish. Like, there needs to be just a little bit... Listen, the word zhuzhing is going to be the catchphrase for this episode. Both need to be zhuzhed up.
Zhuzh it up.
Zhuzh the whole thing. Zhuzh the hell out of it, you guys. I mean, as Robert Pattinson once said... When I read it, it felt like a book that shouldn't have been published. And I think
I didn't see that quote.
It's my favorite Twilight quote. Because it needs a little bit more. And I think the movie needs a little bit more. And we've talked about this before with things like with like Mommy Dearest and how quickly how there's such a quick turnaround for a lot of these things. And I know that this movie had a really quick filming schedule. And I think that Hollywood is so quick to try and get something on paper and get something out there. Like, when when Universal was going to lose their rights to the Fantastic Four,
Right.
and they made that really terrible Fantastic Four movie that didn't need to be made, just so that they could hold on to the rights for a little bit longer. That's what this kind of felt like, where it was like, let's just get something out there because it's hot now, people are going to see it. And I think that if they just took a step back real quickly and just analyzed a little bit more, I think the film could have done a lot more, especially if, Emily Browning was actually cast.
I know. I saw Emily Browning as someone that was like higher up on who could have been Bella.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that actually could have been pretty good. And you think about where she was at in her acting career at this time, 2008? And that's just, I don't know, that's really interesting to me. Like, that could actually have made it a lot better of a movie, at least for me, in my eyes.
Same. I think the issue that we had was even with Robert Pattinson, this was like one of his first big films and his first American film. And he still managed to pull it off really well. I mean, I read that he came over like a year before filming started and was working out. He got an American driver's license.
Aww.
Like, could you imagine being in Washington State and just like, oh my God, who is that guy? I think that's Cedric Diggory. Holy crap, he lives in my town. Oh my God, he has an American driver. He lives in my town. Like, I would have lost my mind. But
yeah, but it's also Robert Pattinson, so
yeah.
it might have been that, or it might have been like, oh my God, don't look right now, but I think there's a homeless man and he's sitting over there. He's kind of cute, but he's just staring at us. He looks really weird. Don't look at him.
Oh, so he's Edward in the book. So he is method.
Robert Pattinson, and I don't mean this as an insult. I'm a weirdo.
Yeah.
You're a weirdo.
Yeah,
it's okay.
It's okay to be weird.
I think he's a weirdo, and I don't think that he is maybe as presentable. I feel like he's just kind of like his own thing.
He kind of reminds me of his attitude kind of reminds me of Bill Murray.
Yeah,
He's just himself. If you don't like it, well, that sounds like a personal problem.
And he's probably a lot like Bill Murray in the respect that I think if you meet him on a good day, it's probably a very fun celebrity interaction. You get a cute picture out of it like you have.
Yeah.
But I also think that maybe if you run into Bill Murray on the wrong day, he could be a real asshole.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe don't do that.
Probably. But yeah, I think that's the crux of it. That's the horror crux of it.
like
Cedric
it.
Diggory. R.I.P. I think that's it. Is that Robert Pattinson's one of those people I feel like who so knows himself that he doesn't have to prove himself to anybody. And I think they paired him up with an actress who wasn't as self-assured and ended up playing Bella as a surface level character, whereas an actress like Emily Browning, who has played kind of these characters that have these deeper subtext to them, I think that she could have dug a little bit more into some of this stuff and maybe would have had more honest reactions.
I wonder how much of a mix with Bella in the movie, who's like shoulders the fault should really land on. Like, is it Kristen Stewart? Is it Stephanie Meyer talking to her? Is it the director? Is it an editor who picked every bad moment where she's mouth breathing? I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. It's because, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there that it is weird. Like, it's true. You can't put the blame on any one person. I mean, if we're doing Titanic rules, it's the captain who always goes down with the ship. But with Stephanie Meyer being so heavy-handed in the script, is she the captain? I'm the captain now? Like, who are we considering to be the captain of the ship is, I think, where we have to start. And then it's a trickle down from there. Because that's the person who has the most, leverage on set.
I'm just wondering about the psychology of all of these women and girls, because it is a very largely female audience. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of guys too, and everybody in between. So it's not just ladies, but historically speaking, it's a largely female audience. So why so many women respond to a character that is so bland?
Because we can imagine that that's us. I think I it's not so much that she's just bland. She's very self-deprecating.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that women are notoriously, we are supposed to be. We're not like, the way I think about it is, do you remember when there's what's the band Harry Styles was in? The boy band.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't remember the name, but they had a song.
Just for men?
Just for men. Just for men. No, they had this
21...
song.
No, wait.
Hold on.
I don't know. I'm old.
Jesse, what group was Harry Styles in?
He's not Alexa.
Harry Styles boy. One Direction. All I typed in was Harry Styles boy. It's one. Don't worry about it, Jesse. We got it. It just, if you just type in Harry Styles boy, it tells you what it is. Oh God. But they had a song that was very popular. And there it is, right there. What Makes You Beautiful? And I remember everyone being gaga goo goo, super baby girl, carry me around about this song. But the lyrics of the song are basically like, you don't know that you're beautiful, and that's why you are beautiful. Which leads one to believe that if I thought I was beautiful, then I'm no longer beautiful, because now my self-worth comes from within and not from you. So you take away all onus to me being beautiful. And
right.
That's kind of the idea, I think, when it comes to Bella, is that we aren't supposed to. That's why we all connect to her. We're not supposed to think we're beautiful or charming or smart or funny. We need the man to tell us those things about us, and then we'll start to believe it in ourselves.
But what's so weird about this is that oftentimes they like brunette female characters for a few reasons, because one of them is that in the world, most women are brunette.
Yeah.
So most women can see a brunette actress and, immediately you have a connection. And some hair colors, particularly blonde and red that's really bright, is too, like, abrasive. Like, women they feel like they can't measure up to that. And then beyond that, there is, like, a theory with, like, females on screen. You look at someone like Princess Leia. Like, Princess Leia is this, like, great character. Rey, like, almost every Star Wars character is brunette.
Yeah.
And there is a baseline of relatability with them so that women do not feel like they have to measure up to it. You can't have, like, Marilyn Monroe and Angelina Jolie as every single character, because women they're going to be overwhelmed with it. Mm-hmm. But to go a step beyond that and to make her just extremely insecure, I don't know. I don't like that. Yeah. And whatever, like, actual feistiness that she had in the book is completely gone. Like, the only time that you see it is when it's at the end and they're running and she kind of yells at that guy. Aside from that, that's it. Yeah.
There's this book that I read in college that I loved, that I just picked up randomly. And it's called Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. And it's about the psychology of the male idea of women. And I think that's a lot of what plays into why these mousy types, like, say, She's All That, these, or you could even say things like, in Batman, before Catwoman becomes Catwoman, or before Poison Ivy becomes Poison Ivy. It's this, it's a darker hair tones, very mousy, very no confidence.
Yeah.
And it's because women are always kind of led to believe that is what we need to be, and we relate to that. And when you're trying to sell a film to a woman, you're going to make the main character as, air quotes, relatable. So most of those women are going to end up being mousy, so that when they become these beautiful creatures that these men desire, then we as a viewer are watching this going, that could be me.
I just, like, hate all of this. Like, now I'm just starting to get angry thinking about things.
it's there's a whole psychology behind
Yeah.
why things are the way they are and why they're marketed the way they are. I mean, if you were just to look at a picture of Kristen Stewart as Bella Swan, like, if you put glasses on her, at the time that movie came out, that's what I looked like. A big green sweater, long, really dark brown hair, and glasses. Yeah. I was the prototype for this, and I just apparently missed it. Didn't fall in my radar.
This feels like a poor use of Kristen Stewart, because the thing with Kristen Stewart is that when I see her, like, when I was reading, there was a pop-up on, one of those, like, stupid news things, and it was a photo of her, and she looked really cool. Like, she's got this, the photo I saw was, like, this buzz cut at the side, really long blonde hair that was kind of almost in a mohawk type kind of a thing, and then this really super bright neon green eyeshadow, and she just looked kind of cool. And I thought to myself, the failure with this is that they did cast these two people that are so rebellious in their own lives against the very machine that they are at the spotlight of. You could have tapped into some of Kristen Stewart's personality and bring that into Bella, where she's a fish out of water. She's been moved around. She is different. She's got these guys hitting on her at school. She's over it. That can still work, and you can still have a personality.
Yeah.
And Kristen Stewart actually fits that pretty well, but instead you just get her hemming and hawing for 2 hours.
Even if in the scenes when she's in her bedroom, if they had a little bit more creativity in that room, just to let her add a personal touch, because that's something too when it comes to films. Like, Jesse and I recently rewatched Pitch Perfect with Anna Kendrick, and you see her in her dorm room, and her character is also kind of just like uber nerdy, whatever. But her walls in her room showcase that there is something more.
Right.
So even if you just want her to be this surface level character, give her just a little bit more. Make her shine like Edward in the woods, people. Like, I will say that the Twilight movie, after watching it, it definitely feels like something that could be remade.
Do we have to do this again?
No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do a casting. I'm just saying, like, there are certain things that you watch that you're like, I don't think it could ever be remade, just based off of how it really resonated with people and how it turned out. Like, I will even say, like, the Harry Potters, even though they cut a lot of information that should have been used, because then it changed kind of a little, whatever, I'm not getting into it, that I don't think that those will be touched, at least not any time within the next, like, 40 years. But I can definitely see Twilight getting some sort of remake, be it a TV show.
Yeah, I was going to say, I see a TV show.
Yeah, like a TV show, or like a made-for-Netflix version of it. And I think that will add a little bit. I think honestly, a TV show for Twilight, I think, would be a lot better than another movie.
Well, you think about what they've done that I think is pretty successful, where you take the basics of the concept, but then otherwise throw everything away.
Yeah.
And that's something that they could definitely do with Twilight and fix a lot of the problems.
Yeah. And if they do it, I would watch it. I would watch it to see how they managed to do it,
I'm going to reserve whether or not I would watch it for more information. I need to hear a little bit more about this project before I say
Listen, I'll jump right in. I'll jump in head first. Hurt myself. Break every bone in my body, but I'll do it. I'll dive into the shallow end just to see what happens.
Speaking of actually hurting yourself, at the end when she's in the hospital and they're explaining how they explained what happened to her mom, and it just like jump cuts to her falling down the stairs like 2 times. I was laughing. I'm like, why did they film that? You can just hear her saying it.
Yeah.
And instead it's like this very comical, like her just falling down the stairs.
Honestly, them coming up with this idea that the reason she's so banged up is she fell down 2 flights of stairs and out a window. Even when I read it in the book, I was like, no one's going to believe this. This is ridiculous. And everyone around her is like, oh, that's so Bella.
Yeah.
comes off even weirder in the movie because at least in the book, she trips and falls a lot. And as a clumsy person, I appreciated reading that. In the movie, she literally falls once, and it's funny. When she falls on her butt, I'm like, oh, that's funny. She never falls again, has no clumsy moments, is not anywhere near what she is in the book. And then at the end, they're like, yeah, you fell down 2 flights of stairs and out a window. And everyone is still like, that's our Bella. No.
So, I'm sorry, Nikki. Possibly at the cost of pointing a finger at you, can I please share your recent injury text to me?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because I am the Bella of this podcast.
You really are the Bella of the podcast. And Nikki, for years, she always ends up hurting herself somehow. And your recent thing that you like to do is like trip, and it's usually some sort of gravity.
I like to do it. It's fun.
You have a problem with gravity, and I don't know how to fix it for you. So it was this week. Poor Nikki. I'm not laughing that you actually hurt yourself, but Nikki was running, which is good, and then she stumbled, and when she texted me, she said, tripped over a manhole cover?
Yeah, like I slipped on a rock and fell on a manhole cover.
Okay, so I'm at work, and I see the text, and I only saw a couple of the words, and I read it and truly believed that she said, I tripped and fell down a manhole, which is such a Looney Tunes moment, and I believed it. I believed you fell down a manhole because that is something that you would do. Holy shit, she fell down a manhole. Was it like Goofy yelling as you fell?
Yes. No. Oh my God. It was
splash.
I would like to point out though that I did get up and I was listening to music from Mulan, the animated movie, not the live action, and Donny Osmond told me that he could make a man out of me, and I was like, okay, and I kept going. I was bleeding. But I didn't know.
Aww.
That adrenaline was just pushing me on. I was just like, I'm gonna keep going, and then I had to stop for a car, and I was like, oh my God, I'm covered in blood. And nobody said anything either.
It's New York. They're not going to.
Like, another one.
Well, Master Wayne, why do we fall?
No, we're not doing it. We're not doing this. We're not doing it.
But, for purposes of Twilight, they did lower her ditziness and her clumsiness. It's almost like they just kind of passively refer to it, like when she said, I don't know why you want me to play this game, because I just can't.
Yeah. I do think, though, that... And that was a problem with the book, is that they gave her ditziness as a character trait and, clumsiness as a character trait, but then they took them away from the movie, so then she had no character traits. And I think that, honestly, I think we're getting to the horcrux of Bella, too, is that she really had nothing because they took it away. They took away the things that made her kind of like an anti-feminist individual, like the constant cooking, cleaning, the falling down all the time, the boys being madly in love with her. They took all of that away from the movie character.
She's also supposed to be really smart, to the point where she is talking to one of the guys, and there's an essay due not until the end of the week, and she already did it in 1 night. But she hides it from him because she doesn't want to gloat. And I found that to be interesting, and it's a shame because that's gone from the movie too, where she's supposed to actually be academically very strong.
Yeah. And see, that's the thing. They took away all these things that created her character that they didn't delve deep enough into in the book. And then I think that's why we don't have anything for her in the movie.
Yeah.
And that's...
Yep.
And yet she's still supposed to be this young adult novel hero that I'm supposed to let a teenage girl want to aspire to be like. I don't want a teenage girl in an abusive relationship with a vampire, unless that vampire is going to help my dad with his diabetes.
A service animal vampire. Please don't pet Robert, okay? He's my service vampire.
Excuse me, Disney, he doesn't need a ticket. He's my service vampire. In fact, he will
That's
use
a man in a leash.
Yeah. In fact, he will use his powers. I no longer need a ticket either. Thank you. Oh, in a perfect world, we'll all have service vampires. But do you have anything else that you'd like to sprinkle on about this movie?
The only other thing I can add is that when I started working at Hot Topic was in 2007, and then this movie came out 2008. So the whole first year of me working there was nothing but the crazy hype train for Twilight. And I say that because when I was watching the movie, I was getting flashbacks because we sold so much replica stuff. So we had like Edward's wrist cuff and the little choker that Alice wears and Edward's jacket and like all this stuff. And it's funny to see it in context because I didn't know what the fuck I was selling. I'm like, okay, you got yet another pack of wrist cuffs. Here we go. And then finally watching the movie, I'm seeing it all. And it was a little weird.
I am so glad I stopped working at Hot Topic before then.
It was nuts.
I was still there when it was like the store no one shopped at. Like I shopped there, you shopped there. You had to be a certain individual to shop at Hot Topic. It was an intimidating store.
It was really crazy. They had midnight releases for the DVDs, the CDs. There was one where it was a midnight party just for one of the trailers. It was at the Florida Mall one where they had the big giant TV there, and it was a midnight release just for the trailer. Jesus. It was a whole machine. It was nuts.
I'm just glad that's over with. I'm glad we don't work at Hot Topic anymore. I'm glad the movies are done.
Yeah, they're done now.
Yeah. Or are they? I mean, with the new book, could they repurpose footage from the first movie? How mad would Robert Pattinson be? Like, could you imagine? Could you only imagine?
That's like some Crispin Glover suing Back to the Future level type stuff that would happen.
I would watch it though. I would want to see. I'd not watch the movie, but I would want to watch every Robert Pattinson interview after that came out. Like, what?
I'm sorry. Can you read me that quote again that he said?
Oh, about
about reading the book.
It's actually from when he read the script.
Oh.
Because he hadn't read the book. He said, when I read it, it felt like a book that shouldn't have been published. There's also another great one, because I remember watching it when he was on, here we go. He was on, Howard Stern, and he talks about how he almost got kicked out of the movie. And he was like, I thought that the way to make it really intense is if you can barely talk to each other or you can barely touch each other, and it's incredibly serious all the time. But everyone wanted it to be that they should just be happy and having fun. I remember the producers giving me a copy of the book, and every single instance where my character smiled, they highlighted everything. So I got a different color highlighter, and I highlighted all the parts where he frowned and just handed it back.
That's amazing.
And then he goes, then my agents flew up and said, you have to do the opposite of what you're doing right now or you're going to get fired today. And I literally came back after lunch and was like, hi, I'm a smiling vampire. Look at me. I want to keep my job.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
The pettiness of highlighting. Oh, he's honestly, if Robert Pattinson ever wants to call and just talk about his experience with Twilight, I will listen. If he just wants to talk about anything, really, I feel like he's just, like I said, I think he knows who he is and he just doesn't care, and that's the type of person I aspire to be all the time.
I just remember one of the interviews that he did for one of the later books. I don't know what book this is, but it's where Bella gets pregnant. And I guess in the movie, there's a scene where they Google what happens to a vampire baby, and
What?
there's just an interview. Yeah. And there's an interview of him making fun of that scene, and he's like, who in their right mind thinks a vampire is Googling what happens with a baby vampire?
Oh my god. Okay, you know what? That's official then. I'm gonna have to watch all the movies and figure this thing out. I'm sorry. I have to watch them Google what happens to a baby vampire. Great. This is the rest of my day. Jesse's gonna be so excited. Jesse's so mad right now. Oh my goodness. But yeah, I don't know what else to say about the book or the movie. It was different. And now we have some new vampire rules. We have venom. Oh, and they also don't sleep at all. That's the other one I forgot to mention. Vampires don't sleep in Twilight.
And in the movie, because my husband Carlos did not watch all of it with me, but he watched parts of it, and when she is saying everything at Edward, and she's like, "You don't go in the sun. Your skin is cold. You don't do this," and she's going on. Carlos goes, "You're David Bowie," and I don't know why that made me laugh so hard. You're David Bowie.
That scene, can we just say that scene was ridiculous?
It was ridiculous.
It's so much better in the book
Yeah.
than in the movie.
Yeah.
So, okay, then Christina, honestly, God honest truth, which was better, the book or the movie?
The movie.
Really?
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. I like the ending of the movie better when Edward refuses to turn her, and then when he says, "Why isn't, your whole life with me good enough?" Something like that. And I thought that is actually a really good lesson to teach about, you think about like the tragic part of Lord of the Rings, how Viggo Mortenstein will not live forever like Aerosmith's daughter will, and how sad that is, and how poignant it is though, because they still want to be together and love each other. And that last line is not in the book. In the book, it's almost like a cliffhanger. Like, you could even... I could see people confusing the ending of the book when it first came out without the sequels, thinking that perhaps he actually does turn her, because it's written a little weird where he like puts his lips up against her neck or whatever. But I actually thought that ending with just that one difference was pretty good.
I will say the thing that I didn't like about the ending of the movie is they actually do leave it on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Dumb. But
it's a weird one too.
It's very weird because I forgot that character existed.
I did too. I was like, who is that?
Because in the book she just disappears. She's never seen from again after the crazy vampire baseball.
Yeah.
It's funny that you liked the movie better because I was going to say I liked the book better.
Really?
Yeah, because I liked Bella a whole lot more in the book than I did in the movie.
Edward so much.
I know. If I could get everything Edward did, all the lines that Edward says in the script, in the book, I think that would be better.
Wait, is this the same thing as Emma? Like, Emma is a much better book with Paul Rudd in it, so Twilight is a better book if Robert Pattinson stars in it?
Yes. If we replace you know what? We're even going to change his name from Edward to Robert Pattinson. And he's just going to do all of his Robert Pattinson mannerisms. No vampire.
Control F, replace Control S.
But yeah, that being said, it's time for the book list.
Woohoo!
We've come to a consensus using Christina's vampiric powers. So our current book list for 2021, which is almost over.
I know.
We really only have 4 more books to add to this list?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Near
Okay.
the end.
This is insane. Our book list is Rosemary's Baby, Wizard of Oz, High Fidelity, Emma, Hell House, Waiting to Exhale, Jaws, A Night to Remember, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Jumanji, The Birds, Forrest Gump. Coming in at lucky number 13, Twilight, Born on the 4th of July, Valley of the Dolls, Mommy Dearest, Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats, Ready Player One, and Eat, Pray, Love.
Woohoo! Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah, me too. I mean,
Now,
yeah, this is where we get serious. This is when the battle really begins.
this I am so hype about. It's not even funny.
I am pumped. So, the next episode is part 2 of the Battle of the Modern Day Vampires. Interview with the Vampire.
Woo!
I am so pumped.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I'll be honest, I've never read the book. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
I know. Because I did read The Vampire Lestat, but I did not read Interview with the Vampire, which seems silly, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very excited now because I read it back in high school, so it's been a minute. It's been a little while. I am an older woman, so I'm excited to reread it. But I did not realize that you had not read
Yeah.
it, so this is actually going to be even more fun.
I will say I've already started it, and I did not want to stop with it, so I'm very excited. Plus, it's spooky time, and Interview with the Vampire is one of those movies I do watch in October.
Yeah, Interview with the Vampire. It is one that I watched so many times. It was one of my favorite movies for a very long time, and it's one that I will actually not like to put on TV just randomly because I like sitting down and watching it from beginning to end. And it's actually been a while. It's been a couple years since I watched it. I think Carlos and I rewatched it beginning to end like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think
wanna
that
say.
might be. I think I've seen it beginning to end 2 years ago. Last year, I did do what I always threaten to do, which is where I stop it. I always end up stopping it after Claudia is not. I don't want to say spoilers, but there's a thing with a tunnel and some sunlight. I usually I always say I'm just gonna stop watching it now. And last year I did.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that was a fun movie.
Yeah, I don't want to get like too much into it, but just like when that part happens, after that, it's not exactly a feel good movie, you know?
That's why every time I watch it, I'm like, I'm just gonna stop. I'm sad. And last year I did it, and I was like, oh, this really changes the film for me. But don't worry, there'll be more fun conversations to come. We're going to see how, and at the end of next week's episode, we're really going to compare, what we know from Dracula from last year. So take a listen to our Dracula episode from last October. And we're going to really compare our modern day vampires to see who really does reign supreme.
Yes.
I'm so pumped.
Can we add Count Chocula?
He's the most delicious of the vampires. I mean, he doesn't do well with my diabetes detecting vampire, but that is totally fine.
Right.
Oh my goodness. Thanks as always to everyone who listens.
Yes, thank you.
Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe. Because you're gonna want to stick around for part 2. Who's gonna win? Thanks again to Jesse for not knowing Harry Styles' boy band name, because neither did we, and for editing this podcast and making us sound like vampire geniuses. And thanks, as always, to Christina.
Oh, well, and thank you, Nikki. This is always fun, and it's always a different type of fun when we get to do something like this that we don't know very well. So it's fun when we end up at the same conclusion on certain things.
Yeah. It's always spooky. And I love it. It's the spooky
Yeah.
time. So break out your fangs. Or if you're, Van Helsing, get your stakes because we are going in hard in the next episode.
Yes.
All right, Christina. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.